The lunatic is on the grass. The lunatic is on the grass.
There is almost no reporting coming from mainstream media regarding the ongoing radiation release from Fukushima Daiichi. This disaster and its inevitable long-term effects are being downplayed by the mainstream media in order to keep the nuclear industry producing profits flowing to its investors like Bill Gates, Mr. Obama, the Rockefellers, and George Soros, to name just a few. So when I read articles like this one from CNN by Matt Smith on February 22nd, 2012, which states, fish and plankton collected from the Pacific Ocean near the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant contain elevated levels of radioactive materials, but they are below levels that pose a threat to public health, researchers reported on Tuesday. Or articles like this one from Elaine Kurtenbach of the Associated Press, and I quote from the Detroit News dated August 16, 2012, Dateline Tokyo. Radiation that leaked from the Fukushima nuclear plant following last year's tsunami caused mutations in some of the butterflies, including dented eyes and stunted wings, though humans seem relatively unaffected, researchers say. Yeah, we'll tell that to the families of the Daiichi plant workers that already died from radiation exposure. The article goes on to say, the mutations are the first evidence that radiation has caused genetic changes in living organisms. They are likely to add concerns among ordinary people, you know, people like you and me, about potential health risks among humans, though there is no evidence of this yet. Scientists say more study is needed to link human health with the Fukushima disaster. Really? Or how about this story reported by the UN and the WHO, the World Health Organization, on May 24th, 2012, which states, First, the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, claimed that their research confirms Japanese milk and vegetables are safe for human consumption. They reported that radiation levels are below cancer-causing levels. The World Health Organization has also assessed the problem of radioactive levels at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. This concept, known as the linear no-threshold dose hypothesis, or the LNT, was accepted in 1959 as the global regulating philosophy and remains entrenched despite all scientific evidence to the contrary. In a document released by the UN agency, neighboring countries have also experienced no spikes in dangerous radiation levels. Really? Have they checked the counts in California, the Pacific Northwest, Canada, and as far east as Boston and Massachusetts lately? The WHO expounds that the rest of the world can breathe easy because the radioactive material that's been expelled into our biosphere is simply a negligible exposure level. The oceans, wildlife, and even our food worldwide is safe, according to the WHO. Maybe we should send them some of the images I'm going to share with you in just a few moments here. In opposition to the WHO and the IAEA's claims are countless real-world, observational, and empirical scientific data from a plethora of independent scientists and experts that assert that the fallout from Fukushima has devastated not only the nation of Japan, but it has poisoned the entire planet. In a study published by Joji Otaki on August 14, 2012, he states, "It's pretty clear that something's gone wrong with the ecosystem." The study began just 2 months after the March 2011 disaster at the Fukushima Daiichi plant. Otaki and his colleagues collected 144 pale grass blue butterflies and found that about 12% of those collected back then exhibited abnormalities. The mutations appeared to worsen over time. You think since ongoing radiation exposure is cumulative. About 52% of the butterflies, he goes on to say, their offspring showed abnormal characteristics. Otake also collected a separate sample of 238 butterflies in September of 2011 and found that 28% were mutated. Dozens of mutated pale grass blue butterflies have been found near Japan's Fukushima nuclear site. Otake said the butterflies are one of the most accurate indicators of environmental conditions because these insects are found in almost every environment. But he maintained that more research needs to be done before scientists can identify other affected species. Really? Can we say Chernobyl? Sensitivity, he says, to radiation varies among species, so research should be conducted on other animals, Otake told the Japan Times. Humans, he says, are totally different from butterflies, and they should be far more resistant to radiation exposure. I guess he didn't take the time to research radiological effects of some higher species like sea life or generational mutagenic effects on animals in the Chernobyl and Belarus regions of the old Soviet Union. Here's the reality of the story being told, or not being told, by the mainstream media. Plant and insect mutations will be the first signs of DNA damage to appear in the ecosystem. One of the reasons is because the life cycle of plants and insects are seasonal, and therefore radiological generational damage will begin to appear in offspring and seasonal crops relatively quickly and provide us with an indicator for the degree of ecological damage and changes from radiation exposure of first-generation plant and insect DNA. Let's go through some images to demonstrate what I mean. First, let's look at some plant mutation. This is the photo of a cherry tomato plant. Location, Japan. This is another plant mutation taken of a black-eyed Susan. Location, Michigan, USA. And another. Black-eyed Susan. Location, Michigan, USA. You can see the mutant effects of the second generation or second crop of this black-eyed Susan plant, which was taken in the spring, early summer of 2012 in Michigan in the United States. Here's a photo of an asparagus. This is also located in Michigan in the United States. Here's a dandelion. Okay, and we see here fasciation of the stem and the flower itself, and the location of this photograph of this plant was Ottawa, Canada. Here's another tomato, mutant tomato. Again, second crop generation, location Japan. And here's a mushroom, a mutated mushroom, location Japan. And here's a photo of mutated tomatoes being sold in stores, location Japan and Asia. Here's a cucumber, mutated cucumber, location Japan. And here are some photos of some tangerines. Again, second crop generation, location Japan. This next area of radiological DNA mutations, we're going to look at our insect and sea life mutations. Here in the above photo, you can see a picture of a pale grass blue butterfly. Again, the top photo is a normal pale grass blue butterfly. The bottom photo is a pale grass blue butterfly mutated. You can see extreme changes to the abdomen, the wings, the coloration spotting, and the antennae. And here's a picture of mutated insect eyes that are dented and misshapen. And here's a picture. Location, Pacific Ocean. This fish was caught, I forget how many miles off the coast of Japan. And as you can see, it is a fish with 2 mouths. And here's another picture. Location, this was near Chernobyl. This photo was taken, I believe, in the 2002 area. It is a picture of a 3-meter long earthworm. And here is a photo of a 6-legged octopus. Location, the Irish Sea. This next category, we're going to get into animal and human mutations, and it still just baffles the mind that these lamestream reports are coming out saying that there are still further tests needed to determine the effects of radiation on human DNA and animal DNA. We just need more tests. And this photo here is a picture of some rat mutations. The location was Tokyo, Japan. And as you can see in this photo, it shows a picture of a rat with deformed legs, ears, and tail. Also, an improportional body shape or body mass compared to the head. This photograph was taken in Chernobyl in the Ukraine. It's a photograph of an animal DNA mutation. It's an 8-legged foal which died hours after birth. And here is another example of animal DNA mutation. It's a mutated foal, and it's being exhibited by, I'm going to butcher this name, Professor Laxchezlaz Konolov of Kiev, located in the Ukraine. And this is a photo of a mutated dog which died shortly after birth. And this picture was taken from the Radiological DNA Mutation Museum located in Kiev in the Ukraine. Now, I have to warn you that the following images that you're going to see may be disturbing to some viewers. These are photos of human DNA mutations resulting from the Chernobyl accident that happened back in 1986. It took several years for these mutations to become evident, as the gestation period of humans is much greater than that of plants, insects, sea life, and some animals. This photo is the picture of a little boy from Chernobyl in the Ukraine. It is a grotesque example of human DNA mutation as a result of prolonged exposure to radiation. This is another example of human DNA mutation. This photo was taken in Chernobyl in the Ukraine. This is yet another example of human DNA mutation. Location is Belarus Orphanage, Russia. This photo is of another little girl. She lives in Belarus, Russia. She was born approximately 6 years after the accident in Chernobyl. And here is yet another example of human DNA mutation. This is a baby with a huge tumor with cranial hair on it. And this photo was located in Chernobyl, Ukraine. This photo is of an adolescent boy, and this picture was taken at an orphanage near Chernobyl. And here's yet another example of human DNA mutation as a result of prolonged exposure to radiation emissions. Location, Chernobyl, the Ukraine. And last, this is a picture of a small baby, which I don't think survived. Another victim of prolonged radiation exposure and DNA mutation. Location, Chernobyl in the Ukraine. There were many more photos that I could have put up here of children that were just born with organs. They were born with their intestines on the outsides of their body. They were born with such severe, just horrifying genetic mutations that I didn't see any point in posting them here in this video. But to hear the experts say that, let me go back here a minute and say that more studies need to be done. Humans are totally different than butterflies, and they should be far more resistant. And things like the WHO exposes or expounds that the rest of the world can breathe easy because the radioactive material that's been expelled into our biosphere from Fukushima is simply a negligible exposure level. I mean, can you honestly look at these pictures and believe these morons? When we are finding becquerel levels as high as 38,000 in fish, in fisheries off the coast of Japan, are we really supposed to believe that we're to be safe? When we're seeing chronological graphs of concentration in the air of cesium and cadmium, of levels that, this is a 20-year chart, and we're looking at levels 2012 and 2011. Here's levels of plutonium-239 in California over the past 20 years. You can just look at this chart and see the spikes in these levels over the past 2 years. Or if we look at levels of uranium-234 in Alaska over the past 20 years, can we not look at the results of uranium-234 in Alaska over the past year? If you just look at these maps, this map of the fallout from Fukushima, can we not understand that it just follows the atmospheric jet stream, and that the plutonium and cesium has already blanketed Alaska, Canada, the U.S. Pacific Northwest, most of the West Coast, and the U.S. Midwest? Is it any wonder that the prostitutes are not reporting on this and giving us useful information that might be able to help people and possibly eradicate some of the effects of the nuclear contamination coming from Fukushima? But instead, they continue to report on things to misdirect us and misguide us. Things like the Penn State pedophile, the ridiculousness of the electoral race between Obama and Romney, and anything else that comes into our mind to completely take our focus on what's important. Mindy Allen of the Digital Journal sums it up pretty well in her article May 4th, 2012. In it, she states, "It's odd that neither the Canadian nor the American mainstream news nor any government agencies are speaking out about the radiation that continues to flow into North America by way of the jet stream. News that should be a priority isn't, and has been left up to the independent journalists of the world to report, like North America's radiation problem from Fukushima that continually is left out of mainstream news. Why? Fukushima is not just a problem for the Japanese, but for the whole world, and no one in charge wants to address it. North America was the first continent to receive the first waves of radiation from the meltdown and exposure at Fukushima. The Canadian government said no worries, and that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency would not be testing food or milk, according to the Vancouver in April of 2011. The ENE News website is continuing regular updates on radiation in North America, keeping people informed on what is really happening with Fukushima and the threat that continues flowing through the jet stream. In September of 2011, environmental research journalist Michael Collins, who runs a radiation detection station in Los Angeles, reveals some interesting facts about contaminated food in the U.S. on the Rense Report, renseradio.com. Independent journalist Kevin Allen wants to know if the U.S. government is responsible due to the fact that it was announced by President Obama that there was no threat to the United States or its people from the Fukushima fallout. Was he wrong? Who's really responsible for the medical bill if the cancer is from something that could have been prevented by the government? If everything is really okay and the public has nothing to worry about, why then is the U.S. government ordering excessive amounts of food, anti-radiation tablets, and body bags? If the government's getting ready, wouldn't it be wise to follow, starting with getting a Geiger counter yourself and checking the radiation levels in your food and your water? People, we've entered into an era where it is the people who will take care of the people and not the government. We have to start first by taking care of ourselves, our families, neighborhoods, and communities. If we rely on or look to government for answers or protection, we are doomed. Start by getting yourself informed, research information, and think for yourself. Please share this video. Thank you for watching. Are you still sleeping? Are you awake yet? Wake up. Wake up.